We've got a very special January 6th presentation today. Larry, I know a lot of people were anticipating the citizens' grand jury, but you are traveling, so we were lucky to get this small amount of time with you. How you feeling tonight, Larry?
Well, actually, I'm quarantined. It depends where you mean by traveling. Traveling into the world of COVID. I have COVID-19. I got it. So, but I felt it was so important that I had to come on your show, Jason, because what's been going on in the last few days in particular with regard to how the peaceful protesters of January 6th are being trashed. I mean, you even see it on Fox News. It's a complete effort to discredit anyone who rose up in protest on that day. And as I've said many times, they didn't rise up just because of the election. They had seen over the decades just how corrupt the government had become. And the straw that broke the camel's back was when Trump's own judges that he still boasts about wouldn't even give him a hearing. He's got to snap out of it too. He's got to figure out the facts of life here. And the reality is that when you see Biden and Harris and the Attorney General come on and threaten conservatives, people of faith, libertarians, those who believe in the vision and creation of our founding fathers, saying we're going to round everybody up and lock them away if they dissent. This is exactly the opposite of the reason we fought the revolution. We declared independence, rather, on July 4th, 1776. And I wrote a column today, you can see it at freedomwatchusa.org, entitled Jefferson Would Have Been the First into the Capitol on January 6th, because he believed that sometimes it was necessary to take action, to be assertive, to even have a rebellion. He said, what's a few thousand dead to refresh the tree of liberty? He didn't want to see anybody dead, but he was predicting what was going to happen if the government became as corrupt as it is today. And now we're under a dictatorship, under total control by the Biden-Harris regime and the radical left of all different groups. Most people in these groups are decent people who want to lead their lives, but the radicals are pure evil. And you've got a Republican Party which is worthless, which doesn't stand up to them, which is just raising money. I get, at least, I'm not kidding, I get 20 emails a day asking for money. And I get them from people in and around President Trump too. And I don't think he knows the full extent of how these consultants are raising money using his name. And I wrote back and I said, the president says he's worth $8 billion. You don't need to be shaking down the American people for money right now during a crisis, the COVID crisis and the collapse of the economy and everything else. So the bottom line is this: we need to rise up, as we did during our Third Continental Congress. We need to declare independence, create a new government, not a new nation. We need to install new leaders. We need to take immunity away from federal government officials and federal judges, and do many other things in fine-tuning our Constitution and move on, and let these criminals in Washington stay there and commit crimes against each other. If the time is coming, when you see Biden, and you're going to play a couple clips, because my stamina is not the best right now. But when you see Biden and Harris and Garland threatening the American people like they did today, using Donald Trump, as the cudgel, we are in serious, serious times. I mean, if this picture that you have on your meme, Biden looks like Mussolini. I mean, that's the expression. He's Il Duce on the balcony of Piazza del Popolo in Rome, And I mean, this guy is despicable. By the way, I was in Rome recently to show you how despicable he is, frankly, and to be blunt, how despicable this Pope is too, this communist Pope. And I'm not anti-Catholic, by the way. I have Catholics in my family. Pope gave him communion. This guy believes in killing unborn babies. Gave him communion.
Wow.
It's not even Catholic. So this is the state of the world right now. And we need to go our own way. We need to bring God back into our lives. We need to invoke divine providence, and we need to form a new government, not a new nation. But anyway, play the clips, Jason, because people need to see that. But this Pope is, following the other Pope that covered up all the sexual abuse. Catholic Church needs to do some renovation itself, in my opinion.
Yeah, really troubling there. There was a bit of a dust-up over the whole communion issue, but let's first take a look.
Oh, by the way, it's not the Catholic Church, it's the Pope. The American bishops voted in favor of denying Biden communion. You can't give communion
Right.
to someone who believes contrary to Catholic dogma in killing children. Sorry, you can't do it.
And I remember that being a controversy, but I didn't hear that he had gone and actually done that with the Pope taking communion.
Yeah, Pope
Let's listen to what
communion. Yeah.
Merrick Garland had to say earlier today.
Issued over 5,000 subpoenas and search warrants, seized approximately 2,000 devices, poured through over 20,000 hours of video footage, and searched through an estimated 15 terabytes of data. We have received over 300,000 tips from ordinary citizens who have been our indispensable partners in this effort. The FBI's website continues to post photos of persons in connection with the events of January 6th, and we continue to seek the public's assistance in identifying those individuals. As of today, we have arrested and charged more than 725 defendants in nearly all 50 states and the District of Columbia for their roles in the January 6th attack. In charging the perpetrators, we have followed well-worn prosecutorial practices. Those who assaulted officers or damaged the Capitol face greater charges. Those who conspired with others to obstruct the vote count also face greater charges. Those who did not undertake such conduct have been charged with lesser offenses, particularly if they accepted their responsibility early and cooperated with the investigation.
I wanted you to hear that part, Larry, because I feel like Merrick Garland is preparing us. He's kind of running interference for the people who want Ray Epps and John Sullivan, some of these people who have kind of bubbled to the surface as seeming to know something about this incident prior to it occurring and even agitating to create it. I feel like Merrick Garland is telegraphing a defense for these guys by saying, well,
that's part of it, but the bigger issue is that he's threatening the American people, and he's turning this into, already turned the FBI and Justice Department on behalf of Biden and Harris and the left into his own Gestapo, and now he's telling people to rat other people out, just like children in Nazi Germany were told to expose their Jewish parents so they could go to death camps. This is what you basically are dealing with here. This is an evil individual. He will be indicted by our citizens' grand juries. There's no doubt. And here's someone who's equally as evil, brain dead, and offensive. I mean, look at that face. I mean, it's sick. It's contorted. I mean, I don't think the guy's going to make it through the next year. He's going to have some stroke, and that'll be it, because he's not there mentally, and he's the complete stooge of the left. So, if you have a clip with him, play that too.
Before we run that, I just want to point something out, because something that I like to do, Larry, that people often aren't well equipped to do. When you watch the news or when you watch a speech like this from Joe Biden, there's certain technical things that I observe that I think inform us about his cognitive state. Obviously, when you're operating, I've witnessed you in court with some of the various hearings you've been at, and it's such a high level of operation. You have to be, it's like the World Series or something, it's not for amateurs. You have to be on your game to succeed in that. And what I want people to listen to, not only in this speech, but in others, when Joe Biden speaks, he seems to be unaware of the volume level of his voice, and his microphone, it distorts because he's speaking so loudly. Whatever audio technician is adjusting his audio can't keep up with his erratic speech patterns. Let's just watch and listen to the stupidity that he spews.
Probably largely deaf as well as everything else.
That's what I'm thinking.
The second big lie being told by the former president and his supporters is that the results of the election of 2020 can't be trusted. The truth is that no election in American history has been more closely scrutinized or more carefully counted.
Now, let me just question that, because as I recall in 2000, there was a whole national wait while they were counting hanging chads. It seems like they spent a lot more time on that than this.
Well, yes, I participated in that. I participated in the trial in Tallahassee before Judge Sanders Sauls. That was Gore v. Bush. And you're absolutely right. It took months to resolve the issue. But See, they don't really care about the truth. This clip that you're playing. I suspect it continues on, but if not, that's
Yeah.
fine.
No, it doesn't.
He's basically saying that the most important thing is honesty and not lying. Well, this guy is probably the biggest liar to ever occupy the White House, even more so than the Clintons, and that's really, quite remarkable. Not only that, bribed to the hilt by the communist Chinese, Ukraine, Russia, someone who lied about Afghanistan, said we were going to get everybody out. He had no intention of doing it. Who killed 10 innocent Afghans because he wanted to look tough after 13 GIs died, 7 innocent children of people who were our allies. I filed a complaint at the International Criminal Court. They are investigating him. I've got it in writing that they are conducting an investigation. And look at, with regard to China, look at how he rolls over to China. Talk about liars. So this is something that is so despicable. This person is the most despicable president ever to occupy the office. And I don't think he's legitimate. And I'm sorry, the least that could have happened on January 6th. It could have been much more violent, could have been like the Bastille on July 14, 1789. It wasn't. It was a warning shot across the bow that more is on the way unless you shape up. And I regret that, but that's why I wrote my book, It Takes a Revolution to Forget the Scandal Industry. I don't want to see violence. I have peaceful and legal means that I'm suggesting. So do you. But Jefferson's prophecy is most likely to come true. And that's why I said he would be at the first of the line entering the Capitol on January 6th.
Yeah. Now, Larry, you're representing Siaka Massaquoi, right? They're accusing him of doing stuff on January 6th, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I'm not technically representing him right now. That's kind of in limbo. I have another client. I am representing him. He brought that case pro se, which is in front of the court in California. But I have another case as well in Northern Florida on behalf of Jesus Rivera's class action lawsuit for all of the different peaceful protesters. But yes, Siaka, I will be moving into that case pro hac vice. It will be cranking up again. And obviously we have to push back, but frankly, Jason, I wouldn't hold my breath on any of these cases. We're making a point, but it's time to declare independence. It's time to move on. It's time to create a new government and move on because the judiciary, the federal judiciary, is so corrupt and so co-opted by the establishment that I can't imagine any judge allowing these cases to go forward. I really can't.
Let's listen to a bit more of what Joe Biden had to say.
Every legal challenge questioning the results in every court in this country that could have been made was made and was rejected.
Now, that's a ridiculous statement on its face. Every legal challenge that could have been made was made. It's just wrong. I have a legal challenge in mind that wasn't made.
They were, first of all, that even if it were true, it doesn't matter because these judges dismissed the cases without even giving a real evidentiary hearing. They are part of the establishment. Jefferson said, unelected, unaccountable to the people, thinking they're there for life, they would become despots and tyrants, causing us to shed the blood of patriots and tyrants yet again every 20 years or so. This is the problem. We don't have judges that will stand in the stead for the American people. So what do you do when you don't have that? You have January 6th. And you have what's likely to come, which is going to be much more violent.
Yeah, I mean, it occurred to me, Larry, I thought, as I was watching this, I thought back to presidential speeches after things like 9/11, when the Challenger exploded, like these sort of terrible national events. And the president, when he comes and gives a speech like this, it's almost like he's like the national dad, kind of like sitting down in your room and saying, look, I know everything is rough, but don't worry, we're going to get through it, and blah, blah, blah. This was a speech where he was more just like ragging on Donald Trump and trying to really defend his own position with regard to questions about the election.
They fear Trump. They fear him because they think he's going to come back. He's not going to come back, regrettably, he's not going to come back because the Democrats will indict him in New York City and in Washington, D.C. for phony allegations of tax evasion and tax fraud. These are hanging juries that he'll get. His family will be implicated and he'll be tied down. But they're piling on because it's a diversion from how they've destroyed the entire country right now. So they have to use Trump as the boogeyman, you see? And what I'm saying is that we thank President Trump for what he did. He did a great job. But, frankly, if he hadn't been so abrasive in many ways towards people, he probably would have been reelected even with the fraud that existed. And I do believe there was massive fraud. It's time to move on. It's time to get new leaders. And we thank him for what he did. But the American people need to do it for themselves. We have no political messiah. But yet, Biden does fear Trump, and so do the Democrats. They do.
Yeah.
And this is a way to divert from their having not just socialized, communized, and atheized this country, but literally destroyed it. We're on our back. We are gasping for air. It's like we're on a ventilator, not just with regard to COVID, but with regard to our body politic. And
one of those Andrew Cuomo ventilators.
Frankly, it's time to put this government, it's time to pull the plug and put this government out of its misery. Frankly, it's stage 4, terminally ill. We need a new government.
For a long time, Larry, you've been saying, not because you don't want this to happen, but because you're reading the legal tea leaves and you've been telling us that Trump will not run in 2024 because he's going to be under indictment or some other kind of legal challenge. And now just, I think yesterday or maybe earlier this week, Alvin Bragg, the first black district attorney, I believe, in New York City, has been sworn in, and he's now vowed to focus on Trump investigations. We've got a crime wave here in New York City. This dope just announced the list of crimes that he's not going to prosecute, basically instructing criminals as to what they can do and get away with it.
See, that's what I don't understand. I watch Fox News just to see what they're doing as the propaganda arm of the Republican Party. And, they try to sugarcoat things. They say, oh, these lefties, they're just not really smart. They don't understand. They're confused. They know what they're doing. It's intentional. They're trying to destroy the country, and they've largely succeeded.
Yeah.
And this guy's, it's like, Bonfire of the Vanities. You remember that book and the movie?
Yeah.
And, this is how you get ahead if you're a public prosecutor. You got to have these kinds of issues. He wants to be more than just a prosecutor. He's Soros back, just like Larry Krasner in Philadelphia and the clowns out there on the West Coast, Gascon and the idiot up there in San Francisco. Yeah, who's the son of
Weather Underground.
Yeah, one of our leftist Jewish soul brothers out there. So this is what we're dealing with, and they're intentionally trying to destroy the country.
Yeah, Bob McManus had this op-ed here that Alvin Bragg just gave a green light for anarchy. I mean, he absolutely did. I don't understand why he would announce the decision to not prosecute crimes. I mean, this is where he's putting everybody at risk. This is not a district attorney. This is a friend of a criminal.
Well, it's time to find some way peacefully and legally to remove him before he does real damage. But as for you, Jason, you live in New York City. Get the hell out of there. I mean, that's a hellhole, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a hellhole.
Let's listen to a bit more of what the I choke when I say it, but the President of the United States had to say.
Often rejected by Republican-appointed judges, including judges appointed by the former president himself, from state courts to the United States Supreme Court.
See, but this is what you've been saying, Larry. Even though Trump appointed these judges, they're not doing him any favors.
They threw him under the bus. They protect themselves before they protect Trump or the American people. They want to be part of the club. When I ran for the U.S. Senate, I said, I don't want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member. But these people love being members. They want to go to parties in Georgetown. They are the establishment creatures. The U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia is the most corrupt court in this country. I practiced in front of it for nearly 45 years. They're a bunch of political hacks, top to bottom, without exception. Just a question of degree. Even my once favorite Judge Lamberth has gone south. And he threw the QAnon shaman in prison for a crime of simply walking into the Capitol, escorted by Capitol Police because he was dressed in a way that he didn't like. In my new book, I have a meme. I have a meme of the QAnon shaman, and then I have a picture of Bill Clinton, the famous portrait of him in a blue dress.
I'm familiar.
that Epstein had. And I said, apparently
Right.
Lambert, prefers the Clinton style address to the QAnon shaman, because he never took any real action to hold the Clintons accountable, other than just letting me take depositions, So
Right.
this is where we are. They're all corrupt, Jason. The federal judiciary, top to bottom, is corrupt when it comes to these kinds of matters. Now, maybe if you have John Doe and Jane Doe equal, who don't have any political clout, maybe you might get a fair decision. But right now, no, they protect the establishment. Lambert said to one of these defendants who had to make a forced confession, that's what they're doing. That's what Garland was doing. You have to force confession to plead mercy, throw yourself on the court. It's like you're in a court in Iran or North Korea or Russia. Lambert said to one of these defendants, George Washington said, you must obey the established government. That tells it all. George Washington and the founding fathers did not obey the established government. The established government was King George III, who was far less worse than this brain-dead moron, the stooge of the left, Joe Biden, because King was not a socialist. He wasn't a communist. He wasn't an atheist. He wasn't a radical Marxist. He wasn't a radical Muslim. He wasn't a member of the Jewish left. He wasn't a member of the radical feminist movement. He wasn't a matter of the radical LGBTQ movement. And most people, like I said, in these groups are decent people, but the radicals are pure evil. We have it much worse today than we had it in 1776. And that's why we need to declare independence again. Take the capital out of Washington, D.C. Put it back in Philadelphia at Independence Hall. The military will back us up. I believe they will. I think they're on the verge of even overthrowing this government. I'm not advocating it, but they have been dishonored. They've been trashed. They've been killed. The police as well. And the people are at the breaking point right now. And Biden and Harris and Garland just lit the match in the last 2 days.
There was an issue along the lines of what you were just saying, where some Navy SEALs have actually sued Biden, and it seems they've had some victory here. This is to do with the vaccine mandate. Now, members of the military who refuse the vaccine mandate are dishonorably discharged, which is almost like a felony, right?
Yeah, when it goes on your record, it's going to be hard to get a job after that. Not that anybody wants jobs anymore, because they don't. But it's dishonorable. It's going to affect you through your entire life. And if you wanted to be in the defense industry, you could never get a security clearance.
Right. So if somebody's 40 or something like that, or even late 30s in the military, and suddenly they get a dishonorable discharge, they've wasted most of their adult life and career, and they'll be totally kind of screwed, as almost everybody in America is right now.
By the way, to show the headdress of the QAnon shaman, I always like to try to use a little humor to make a point.
I think when he gets out of jail, we're going to have to invite him on the Citizens Grand Jury.
At Thanksgiving, I was over my relative's house, and they had a headdress like that. And, just on display. I put it on. I took a picture of myself, a selfie, and I sent it to Judge Lambert, that, I used to be friends with. And I said, this Thanksgiving, I'm thankful, Royce, that I'm not in front of you.
Ooh, did he write back?
And I sent him the picture of me wearing the QAnon shaman headdress. So, no, he didn't write back. I don't suspect I'll ever hear from him again. Right.
Yeah, I think that might be right. So let me ask you about another legal particularity here. We've got, so this is an article that's telling us that so far judges have declined the U.S. proposed sentences in 2/3 of the cases, and out of 701 federal defendants, 74 have been sentenced, but nearly all for misdemeanors. The other thing that we haven't yet addressed, Larry, is that
here's the point of the thing. They've jacked up the sentences beyond that which is being requested by the Justice Department. Yeah, I mean, the judges fear for their own lives. The people know that they're onto them, okay, because we're not being protected by the judges, and people know that. And that's what came out during the last election in these challenges, when Trump could not even get a fair hearing.
Right. But let's talk about this for a second, Larry, because they are constantly marketing this thing as an insurrection. But when you consider that most of the people who've been charged with trespassing I mean, that's like the weakest insurrection anybody's ever heard of. You know, do you think they're getting ready to charge Trump with insurrection?
The January
Sedition?
6th committee will make a referral to the Justice Department. I don't think that even Garland's Justice Department has the guts to do that, but they will rough him up enough that it will cost him a lot of time and expense and further weaken him, and it'll be another way of trying to keep him from declaring to run for president again. But yes, they would like to charge him, and Dick Cheney, daughter, Liz Cheney, who looks like Dick Cheney in a skirt. Poor lady. I mean, she's been sentenced to look like her father in a skirt for the rest of her life. It's despicable. It's disgusting. She's a disgusting human being, a real disgusting human being.
I agree with you
A
completely.
warmonger, a disgusting human being, and frankly, as stupid as her father, who got us into all these unnecessary wars.
Yeah, her father was terrible and also was indicted for prison profiteering. So that raises the question of, you know.
He should have been indicted over the Valerie Plame affair, but they protected him. You know, at the time, instead his chief of staff, Gooder Libby, he did time for lying under oath, allegedly.
Right. There was this issue where Dick Cheney had been, Cheney and Gonzalez were indicted in connection with private prison in Texas for profiteering. I don't know whatever happened to this. I've made several attempts to look into it. This was this Corrections Corporation of America that's now become Core Civic. I seem to remember there was something going on with Core Civic and maybe the prison that the Bundys were in, or maybe I'm not remembering that correctly.
I'm not sure, but Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you right now to wrap it up because I'm kind of fading.
Sure.
I do have COVID.
No problem, Larry.
I just found out 2 days ago, so I'm quarantining right now. So I did want to come on, and I thank you for that. And you are a great American, and you are a patriot because you allow people to say the truth, crowdsource the truth. And the American people need to look at these speeches, watch these speeches of Garland, of Harris, and Biden today. They're frightening. It tells you what we're up against. We are living in the equivalent of the Fourth Reich. That's my opinion.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. I want to make sure that people who are watching know that they can learn more about the work that you're doing, Larry, by visiting freedomwatchusa.org. People can also contribute financially to the work that you're doing by clicking on the red donate button. And Freedom Watch is a 501c3, so financial contributions are tax deductible. And if people contribute $50 or more, they're going to get a copy of the book. And this is the first edition of It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. This is a great way for people to keep up on what is going on there at Freedom Watch. Larry, we'll be back next week with another session of the Citizens Grand Jury. And until then, feel better. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great